Good afternoon and welcome to the April 2021 regular board meeting of the Urban Redevelopment Authority. I'm Diamante Walker, the Deputy Executive Director of the URA, and I'd like to welcome you on behalf of Executive Director Greg Flisram, Chairman Williamson, and the esteemed URA Board. We are waiting for Chairman Williamson's arrival. He will be with us shortly and we will commence the meeting.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Sam. You've been introduced and you do have a quorum present.
Great. Give me 1 second to get my documents all pulled up in front of me. Okay, so the records show that we're beginning the regular board meeting of the Urban Redevelopment Authority of Pittsburgh for Thursday, April 8th, with a quorum of board members present. And for the record, it looks like all 5 board members are present. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. I do want to disclose, first of all, as an announcement, that an executive session of the board was held this afternoon at noon. It was a briefing on progress to date on the Lower Hill redevelopment on the 28 acres. No decisions, of course, were made, and it was just a briefing for board information. First order of business will be the approval of the minutes from our last board meeting from March 11th. They've been distributed. If they're all in order, then a motion would be in order to approve them. Take that as a motion. A second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries and the minutes are approved, which takes us to public comment. I think we have a couple of registrants for live public comments, and I'll also just note for the record there were, I believe, 2 public comment submissions, and maybe just 1 written public comment submission that has been distributed to the board for their review. It's the monthly progress report from Lance Harrell on behalf of the Lower Hill Executive Management Committee. It also will be posted to the URA website. And with that, I think we can the live public comment.
First up will be Robert Damewood. You have 3 minutes, and I'll let you know when you have 10 seconds left. Let me start my clock real quick.
All right, thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Look, I just wanted to clarify some comments I made at the last board meeting about own PGH. Basically, you know, if you remember, I commented that the incentives are poorly aligned to the goals of helping very low income home buyers and repairing homes in neighborhoods with high repair needs. Next thing I know, I'm cited in the Business Times as being opposed to own PGH. I just wanted to clarify, I am not opposed to that program. I appreciate Jessica Smith Perry's creativity and hard work. And I'm pretty sure that the many members of the board share my concerns about the incentives. And I know that Jessica is working to look at those incentives and try to align them better to goals. The second thing that I'd like to comment on is I see that the board today will be considering funding for eviction defense, and I want to applaud the board for doing that. I want to thank Jeremy Carter for drafting workable guidelines for that kind of program. And I just want to mention that the eviction prevention infrastructure is siloed in Pittsburgh and Allegheny County, and this is an important move to work across those silos, right? To work across various whether it's rental assistance or eviction defense or mediation or homelessness prevention or what have you. Everyone works within their own silos, and the URA is taking an important step to break out of that. And so I just wanted to thank you for doing that. And thanks, and those are my comments.
Thank you. I think, Daniel, is there one other live public comment?
Yes, the other live public comment will be from Megan Confer-Hammond.
Megan, are you there?
Hold on just one moment. I gotta unmute her. Okay, Megan, you should be good to go. And you have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Megan Confer-Hammond. I'm the Executive Director of the Fair Housing Partnership of Greater Pittsburgh. I want to take a minute to note that April is Fair Housing Month. And April is Fair Housing Month because it commemorates President Lyndon Baines Johnson signing the Fair Housing Act into law on April 11th, 1968. And this was after nearly a decade of bloodshed in the push for civil rights. Today, it's April 8th, 2021, and we are reckoning with a similar civil rights fight as we go from Black Lives Matter to the ongoing trial of George Floyd's murder. In 1968, the international forces that buffeted us was Vietnam, and in 2021, we are in the midst of a global pandemic. I bring this up today because it's not business as usual, but a time of change. And so in reviewing today's agenda, I asked for the inclusion of a fair housing lens in the project proposal so that we have the data for consideration. And for example, such considerations can include looking at East Hills. The census data has shown an overall population loss that includes losing 8% of its Black alone population. But at the same time, it's had a 62.6% increase of its white population. So how does that data factor into Rising Tides Partners development plans? Additionally, I'll give an example that while the RACP funds are state-funded awards, given the FNB's financial center's outside presence in the Hill District development, what do we know of the rates of mortgage origination by FNB based on race? And so I ask that we look and consider these concepts and a fair housing lens with the decisions that are being made, not as a means of voting up or down, but as a means of knowing the information in which we can understand what is occurring with development in our city through an equity lens. But I will also lend FHP support separately for the swift approval of 7C regarding the landlord-tenant legal assistance. It is indeed a fantastic program to see come online, and I'll ask for transparency in which the program's development as it occurs over the upcoming months, in which we can see the regular reports of its outcomes with that fair housing lens to make sure that we are having an equitable impact in safeguarding low-income tenants and remaining in their homes. Thank you very much and enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you. And I think I actually missed one additional public comment submission that came in writing. So let me just note for the record that that came from the Hill District. Who's it signed by? Came from Marimba Malayans, President and CEO of the Hill CDC. And that was sent directly to all board members. It is termed Lower Hill Block G1 and Block G4 second status of non-compliance with CSIP and the Greater Hill District Master Plan. So once again, it was actually sent directly to all board members, and as with all public comment, will be posted on the URA website. Is there any other additional public comment? Looks like that is all we've got for today, I think. So then we will move into announcements and the first quarter impact report.
Jamie Reese will cover this section. Jamie, you may need to unmute.
I am unmuted, and I think that we're just waiting for my video to start, unless I'm intended to just be voice. Oh, here we go. All right, hi everyone. My name is Jamie Reese. I will be walking you through the first iteration of what's going to become a quarterly report on the URA's impacts and performance that'll go to the board and the public. We're excited to share this first cut. I should note, I have the privilege of sharing this with you, but I really want to acknowledge 40 plus URA employees have worked on this over the course of 18 months. And from here, we envision continuing to refine the metrics and the manner of reporting in parallel with a transition that even more staff are working very hard on into a completely new software system that'll help us produce more and more cohesive and robust reporting future forward. With that said, we are centering this report around Pittsburgh's 5 economic development priorities. Those were developed during our organizational strategy a couple of years ago. The first of those 5 economic development priorities is to create more housing that is affordable to the average Pittsburgher. And you'll notice that that phrase, housing that is affordable to the average Pittsburgher, is intentional. The average Pittsburgher makes only, a little under $50,000 per year, and that is well under the country, the state, and the county. The way that the URA works to close that gap in affordable housing supply is through loans to developers that either create new affordable or preserve existing affordable housing units, and lending to homeowners who make repairs to their homes. And one of the agreements that they make when they take out those loans is that they will continue to live in the property or sell it to another low-income buyer, thereby formalizing additional affordable housing stock. So what you'll see here is just on the right-hand side is going to be the count of affordable housing units from these different channels. So for, there we go. On the, and I also want to note, this is going to go on our website shortly. So for those of you that are interested, please log on. It'll be at ura.org under a section called Impact. And what you're seeing is Dylan sort of showing you how you can interact with this so you can get a little more detail on the data. But in short, the URA creates and preserves units through, affordable housing for sale, for rent, some of that preservation. And then in the dark blue at the bottom here, you see some workforce units. And those are just to distinguish between what we call affordable, which is 80% of area median income or below, versus what we call workforce, which is above 80% of area median income. On the left-hand side, you can see the total amount that the URA has invested in affordable housing and in that, again, workforce income band. So that total investment for the URA so far, just in the first quarter, is $2.7 million, and total overall is $3.5 million. Next, we're going to look at the borrower representation. This is just for those home loans that we talked about for repairs. Right now, and this is hot off the presses as of a couple days ago, 71% of our homeowners that are making repairs are minority or women or both heads of households. This is a really interesting flip because most of the time we hover around like 80 to 85%. But I think we'll see, ebbs and flows throughout the year. The last thing we're going to see at the end of each of these impact reports is something that I don't think we have too much time to get into, but I will encourage you once we do put it on the website to take a look at each of these stories, and there'll be links to those stories. This story we're drawing attention to because while the URA has our mission orientation, we are still a redevelopment authority. And with that comes sort of the channels that the URA has always had to reclaim and transform vacant property for public good. The difference now is that we're trying to use those tools in addition to new ones to achieve those mission-oriented things. This project that we're highlighting is the Larmor School, which we're really excited about because it's been sitting blighted for decades, and now you drive by and you see all of that activity happening. From here, we can look at our second economic development priority. And these are, when I say second, that's certainly not a weighting of which ones are the most important, but that is to encourage more entrepreneurship and small business development. I think many of you who are watching today, including the board, you're very used to seeing a lot of these facts and figures. One thing I'll point out to you though is there's a little bit of a focus at the moment on business resilience that we want to call out. And that is because as the businesses are sort of getting back on their feet and getting back on a growth trajectory after this COVID crisis, a couple of programs have been put into place to try to keep that growth steady. One of them is the Minority Recovery and Growth Fund. And that, as we know, is the first URA program specifically targeted for minority owned businesses. We've had 12 closings this quarter in that Minority Recovery and Growth Fund. We also have had 29 commercial rent relief grant recipients, and those funds are matched by landlords. You can see our minority and women-owned business representation remains high at 88%. And there is some information here on our traditional commercial loans. What is not pictured here is our affiliate lending. We had 4 closings through Invest PGH, and we're exploring ways to sort of show that data to show sort of the relationship between the affiliate and the URA as our staff capacity continues to be directed towards making good use of that creative and new funding source. The last way that we help small businesses and entrepreneurs is through simple wayfinding and connections to resources. So on the active side of things, that means going out into communities, attending events, and in these times of COVID virtual environment, it means hosting webinars. This quarter, we did have one webinar with 57 attendees. But we also, from a more passive lens, is to make sure that we are able to follow up with those community members. There are staff here at the URA that will answer your calls and emails and help you find a connection. We have, I actually saw a very robust flow chart of all of the different resources that those staff can direct you to. And we've done that with over 100 individuals this quarter. I will encourage you to take a look at this borrower spotlight as well. This is about Cafe on the Corner and some programming that they have to support the local teens and young adults, which they are doing because they want to counter some violence and sort of improve their communities. Now we can talk about promoting inclusive growth and quality job creation. So here at the URA, as an economic development authority, there are things that we do to try to grow our economy, but of course to do it in an equitable way. And I think it's worth taking a minute to think about what we mean by inclusive economic growth as opposed to equitable development. Equitable development is about making sure that the pie is divided in a way that is fair to everyone and making sure that everyone gets a piece of the pie. Inclusive growth means making sure that the pie is growing while we do that. So with all that in mind, we can talk about how the URA's programs and activities can sort of provide, a way for individuals to start on a path towards economic opportunity. The first thing that we need in order to benefit from the economic growth of the region is just solid footing, starting out on a solid foundation. And that means making sure that your basic needs are met. Those basic needs are met in the most basic way by making sure that people have access to stable and affordable and accessible housing. So what you're seeing here is the number and amount invested in housing crisis prevention through the Housing Stabilization Program and accessibility improvements to housing for homeowners and renters. So you can toggle between those two. You'll see that, we've had over $18,000 invested in those accessibility improvements and more dollars going out for housing crisis prevention every day. I think at that moment it was over, what is that, 30? Can you hover, Dylan, over yeah, there we go. Yeah, over 300,000 in that moment, but it's truly flying out the door every day. Next, we can talk about what happens when the URA supports a development project. So what we're used to hearing on sort of a monthly basis is we're hearing about these huge development projects. We're hearing about huge financial commitments. And we talk about the large economic impact, the millions and millions of dollars going into those things. But what we don't always think about is just on a much more incremental basis, what is the economic activity that's coming out of these projects? So in order to take a look at that, we started with an example of the funds that were dispersed this quarter for tax diversion projects. So projects that had already been committed, funds through a tax diversion. The money is now going out the door for the work to be done. So what we're showing here are the economic effects in terms of employment earnings. So those earnings are coming from the work that is being done to get to the construction type work that's being done. So that's where you'll see that first line, $235,000 in labor income, just from the construction phase of that 500,000 plus that's been paid out for these projects in the first quarter. The second sort of layer of economic impact and employment impact is on that sort of second line, that's called indirect economic impact. That comes from the goods and services that are purchased by the firms that are doing the construction work to carry out the project. And then the third sort of ripple effect that you'll see in terms of employment is the income that's coming from purchasing from the individuals that are earning off of the direct and indirect economic effects of that project. The last thing that we look at here is sort of what's the contribution to gross regional product out of all of those things. And that number just for this quarter happens to be over $800,000. And again, that's just restricted to tax diversion projects that are being paid out right now. So what does that mean for an individual? Yes, we want you on solid footing. Yes, we want to make sure that there's good employment opportunity in the region, and that is something that we will continue to drill into as our data ecosystem gets a little bit more robust. But it also means, let's talk about that wealth gap. The two ways that we all know can help an individual achieve wealth generation is buying a home and starting a business. So one of the ways that we help people buy a home is through down payment and closing cost assistance. This figure I actually need to update. It's 24 at this point have been helped with down payment and closing cost assistance so far this year for more than $300,000 in total investment. And I want to note that 20 of those 24 were at or below 80% of area median income, so considered low income. And 22 of those 24 were minority and or women heads of household. The other thing shown here is the number of businesses that are being helped get off the ground just through the Catapult program. So there's lots of ways that the URA helps a business get started, but I wanted to highlight those 29 businesses that are participating in the Catapult program this year. This story here at the bottom, I really encourage you to click through. It's a little bit of a longer read, but it's a really neat story about how one business, the Hilltop Pharmacy, and a number of partner organizations in the community were able to rally together. They did participate in the Get Online, Grow Online program, but once that COVID vaccine needed to be distributed, the impact was incredible. So please do click through to that when you see it online and take a read through that story. Okay, next we can talk about neighborhood and main streets revitalization efforts. The way that the URA looks at these kinds of efforts is that it's really the residents, the local businesses, and the community-based organizations that are driving neighborhood revitalization. So here are some of the ways that we support those channels towards neighborhood revitalization. One is just through straight technical assistance for main streets organizations. So they will, URA staff will help business district managers navigate resources, get the certifications and the legal documentation that they need to get in order, you know, and try to take off in that way. The second way is through facade improvements. So the URA offers both business and residential facade improvements, the residential ones being through our affiliate PHTC. So you can see in this quarter, we did help with 2 storefronts and I think 4 or 5, yes, 5 homes, you know, fix up their storefronts this quarter, which really helps with, you know, people are already proud of their homes and businesses. Let's give them the resources to make that a reality. Another way is that we will contract with local businesses and we'll give grants to nonprofit organizations to make direct improvements in the neighborhood. What you're seeing in green is the number of dollars invested in vacant property maintenance through the land care program, which also provides a growth opportunity for those land care contractors. And the second thing you'll see in orange is the number of, this is actually the number of dollars distributed to community-based organizations for neighborhood investment fund projects in this quarter. From here, we can talk about, again, like that origin of a redevelopment authority, the land recycling function is about looking at, you know, vacant and underutilized property, taking care of it, restoring it to productive use. In this quarter, the URA acquired 13 properties. There were over 1,500 vacant lots regularly maintained through the land care program. There are even more that respond on sort of an on-call basis. And then there were 4 properties sold and 4 properties dedicated this quarter. Dedicated just means that it's being transitioned for more of a public use, like a road or a park. We would be remiss if we did not mention our Avenues of Hope initiative. We're very excited to show this project in Big Tom's Barbershop. I would encourage you again to click through to that story because that's something that's come to the board. So I won't go back into that here. And lastly, we're looking at developing a talented workforce that is equipped with the skills of the future. We could not have anticipated how much this type of activity and this role for the URA was going to be needed. I think this goes without saying, but of course last year was one of the worst in the course of Pittsburgh's history in terms of employment. However, a few things went well. The URA did have 35 people attending this opportunity fair, which had everything from resources for job training, workforce programs, and expungement opportunities. There also were expungement clinics specifically for that purpose to help clear out criminal records and just making direct referrals to resources and hosting our job board. Right now, there's actually 25 jobs posted on that job board. Last thing you'll see here, and this is where we wrap up, is a new program that is being launched at Ebenezer Baptist Church. That again is linked on our website, so I would encourage you to take a look at that. And that is where I will end.
Thanks, Jamie. That was a lot of information, really well presented. Actually, incredibly helpful and I think dynamic briefing. Other questions from members of the board or any comments anybody wants to share?
Yeah, I was going to say, Jamie, this is fantastic. I think, you know, some of your earlier points of how to help us contextualize some of our projects and not just the money that we're putting in up front, but how that money helps to spur development and investment in the, you know, neighborhood surrounding that project is really helpful. I think, you know, I'd love to see more of this. Something that would be helpful to me personally, again, in our mission, in our group's pursuit of trying to really clarify and be transparent about our mission to make sure that racial equity is embedded in all of our work, is if for some of this stuff we could break out, you know, per you know, types of loans we're putting out, how we are directly investing in Black residents. And there was also, I believe, a question or comment about AMI, which is something I was thinking about as well, you know, when we're talking about our massive investments for some of our housing stabilization programs and the other ones that you mentioned, if there's a way to really show how we're getting to our you know, most vulnerable Pittsburghers would be helpful. But I love the way that you presented this data. I think the visualizations are super helpful, and you know, presenting this information in this way is something I personally would love to see more of in the future. Thank you for all you and the whole team for all your work on this. I know it wasn't an easy lift.
So I want to underscore the fantastic work that Jamie and the performance measurement team has done. We are working to get to this sort of balanced scorecard. And I know that's very high level data. And so we are open and amenable. We want to hear the data that folks want to see tracked. And so I think this is a great first start. And I know that the board has been hungry to understand, you do a lot of votes. What does that mean? What does that translate into? The team has done a fantastic job of presenting this. Thank you, Jamie.
Completely agree. Any other questions or comments from board before we move on? Hearing none, then I think we're going to move on into the voting agenda, beginning with residential lending.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I am here today. This is actually really exciting. I'm here today to talk about what could be the final board resolutions for the 7-year Larmor East Liberty Choice Neighborhood project. As a lot of you will remember, the Housing Authority and the city, and also to help with the URA, we all received the Choice Neighborhood Award from HUD in June 2014 for the purpose of redeveloping the 157 units that were at East Liberty Gardens and Hamilton Larmor and turning it into a mixed income community of 319 units. And so you have seen the first phase of 85 units, the second phase of 150 units. We kind of skipped phase 3 and moved directly to phase 4, which was the Larmor School, which is now under construction. And so today, these authorizations are for the financing of phase 3, which is a mixed use, mixed income apartment building on the corner of Larmor and Meadow Avenue in Larmor. And it'll be 42 units, 38 of them are in the building, and then 37 of them are in the building and 5 are adjacent townhomes, and it will include 4,000 square feet of commercial space. So you can see the breakout of the unit types on the screen. Most of the units are affordable at 60% area median income or below, with 9 of them market rate for the neighborhood. This is almost a $20 million, a $19.6 million project. The majority of the funding, of course, is coming through the low-income housing tax credit program through the equity, but there's also the remainder of the federal choice neighborhood program funding, plus the housing authority and the URA to finish it. So the authorizations today is $650,000 of Housing Opportunity Fund rental gap program funding, but then also $1,476,000 in the form of a commercial loan to the development entity, which is McCormick Barron Salazar and the Housing Authority. So that they can build out the 4,000 square feet of commercial space that's going to be, you know, right there on a key corner of the neighborhood. And the PEIDC, which is a URA affiliate, will be the master leasee of that space. So we will be sourcing that loan, you can see on the screen, from a combination of sources that the URA has on hand, our UDAG, CDBG, and PAYGO, and some real estate funding, so that we can support bringing commercial back into the Larmor Avenue corridor. So today on the phone is Lindsay Evans from McCormick Barron Salazar, and also Anissa from the Housing Authority, if there are any questions.
Thanks, Jessica. Any questions from the board?
Motion to approve.
All right. Motion is seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today, the URA is asking for authorization to enter into 2 pre-development loans with Rising Tide Partners, a UDAG program income fund loan of up to $400,000, and a Pittsburgh Housing Construction Fund loan in an amount of $81,000. I do want to provide a little bit of context for the board on this request. East Hills is a naturally occurring homeownership park that has fallen into blight. Almost 60 years since it was originally created, the homes and the communal spaces are requiring pretty substantial renovation. And in 2019, the URA provided funding for East Liberty Development Incorporation and their partner Help Pittsburgh. And they analyzed the neighborhood's property conditions, unit ownership, liens, legal documents for the park. They also surveyed homeowners and tenants about the neighborhood conditions and about problematic landlords, and they revived the homeowners association. So the product of this work, this loan from 2019, was a strategy report that was released in December of last year by Rising Tide Partners and their other partners. And this strategy report stated a reinvestment strategy for the East Hills Park. And I want to highlight a few of those strategy points. So the first of which is that 50% of the homes in the neighborhood require roof replacement or other significant repair. And of the 167 townhomes in the East Hills Park, 32 are vacant and only 37% are owner occupied. So as a result of their findings, Rising Tide Partners is moving forward on this reinvestment strategy that they highlight in the report. And they're asking for the URA to help them increase affordable home ownership and revive the communal spaces in the park. So today's ask is a small step forward in the strategy. As I mentioned, the redevelopment of East Hills Park neighborhood is multifaceted. So first, there's an acquisition and stabilization of 30 vacant townhomes in the East Hills Park. 3 of these homes are currently in the city's land reserve, and the remainder will require Rising Tide to use Pennsylvania's Conservatorship Act so that they can acquire the titles lien-free. These homes will be acquired and stabilized in the short term with this $400,000 pre-development loan, and this loan will be 3% interest with a 6-year term. The hope is to eventually roll these 30 units into a 15-year lease purchase, low-income housing tax credit deal. Simultaneously, Rising Tide will acquire 4 occupied units, rental units, and 1 vacant rental unit, and complete light to moderate rehabilitation for sale into affordable home ownership within the next 5 years. So for this project, Rising Tide is asking for that $81,000 pre-development loan that will have 0% interest and a term of 5 years. So those are the two pieces of the pre-development strategy and the associated URA financing. In total, that's $481,000 in pre-development financing for this board to approve. The total development costs for these activities are combined $1.4 million. I broke the budgets out in the packets, and I'm happy to discuss them if anyone has questions. But one thing that I do want to note is that Rising Tide is expecting to hear from PA DCED's Blight Grant program in the next week or so. And if they do receive funding, we will decrease our $400,000 pre-development loan accordingly, which is why today's first authorization is for an amount up to $400,000. This redevelopment strategy is important for a handful of reasons, one of which is that East Hills Park is really the only section of the neighborhood that offers affordable home ownership. And you can see in this map on the right-hand side, that light blue section, that is the East Hills Park that I'm referring to. That's the home ownership community in East Hills neighborhood. The other 4 sections are residential but rental units. So that's 432 units of privately owned affordable rental housing. So this being the only homeownership area of the neighborhood makes it an important development. Additionally, most of these units are townhomes. So one unit in disrepair is pretty negatively affecting the nearby units that will be occupied with long-term owners. You can see one of the photos that Rising Tide Partners has taken during their original investigation of the neighborhood up top there. So some of the units are quite a mess. So this strategy is important to stabilize those units as well as acquire them. So this project is a pretty big step towards the revitalization of the neighborhood, and conversations are continuing with pretty important entities like obviously the URA, but Councilman Burgess, the mayor's office, the homeowners association, the neighborhood residents themselves. So with that being said, I'll open it up to questions in a minute. I do want to note that Kendall Pelling and Joe Wingenfeld from Rising Tide Partners are here as the developers. So Kendall and Joe, I'm not sure if you have anything brief you want to add, maybe something that touches on Megan Confer-Hammond's comments about fair housing and bringing Black residents back to the neighborhood. If you don't have anything to add, we can turn it over for questions.
Sure. I would say, first of all, just thank you to the URA and the mayor's office for recognizing the needs of this homeowners association. There's really some great long-term African-American homeowners who have not given up on their community, and they have been struggling to keep their homeowners association afloat and figure out how to surmount what seem like overwhelming problems. So just thank you to the URA and the mayor's office and Reverend Burgess for seeing their needs and for stepping forward boldly to help us meet their needs. I also want to clarify that this process is being done in partnership with the East Hills Homeowners Association and also with the East Hills Consensus Group. So the Rising Tide Partners has a community governance structure in every neighborhood we work in. So the properties that are acquired here will be put into a LLC entity, and that board of the entity, half the seats will come from the community and will be appointed by the Homeowners Association and East Hills Consensus Group, so that we ensure that our regional nonprofit is making decisions with our community leaders and not for them. This is a great step to be able to empower the Homeowners Association to move towards stability and to ensure that the community is able to achieve its goals and protect and restore itself.
If I could very quickly, she's not on the call today, but Diane Daniels has been instrumental in this work. She's been reaching out for quite a few years, asking for more attention to be placed on this part of the community. So I'm very, thankful that the work has reached a point where we can start to invest in some of her ideas and that community voice. I hear from residents all the time, their homes are blighted. They're at risk of losing their homes because there are publicly held parcels that are not being addressed and taken care of. So I think we can do something about that today and not, just have meetings about how we invest and how we improve this neighborhood, but actually put some action towards it.
I had a question about, and this, I don't think this is going to be addressed in this phase, but the owner occupied parcels and how that will work. Will residents be able to Is there enough work, or is there enough work that they can stay in their homes? Would they have to relocate? Just curious on how you're planning to do that.
Sure, I can answer that question. So as part of our application for DECD's Blight Grant Program, the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation has made a commitment to provide some matching facade grant and loan program for adjacent homeowners. And so that if there are homeowners in these rows that need work as well, that they can have a source to do that. And also, because remember, these are attached townhouses. So when Rising Tide Partners becomes conservator of one of these properties, that leaking roof in the middle property probably rotted the roof of both the owner occupants. So we're going ahead and repairing those neighboring roofs at the same time. With the URA's small loan to help Pittsburgh, we were able to repair the roofs of 3 other homeowners who suffered water damage from the blighted abandoned properties, and then repair the interior water damage in those units. So one of the homeowners had a trash can in her bedroom catching water leaking through her brand new roof because of the unit next door. So we go ahead and say this vacant property is responsible for that damage. So when we're appointed conservator, we will repair that damage.
Wonderful, thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you. Then we have, you heard about this during public comment, but we have a agenda item to select a slate of providers for the legal assistance program.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Today we are seeking authorization to enter into contracts with the following providers to administer the legal assistance programs. The funding is coming from the Housing Opportunity Fund. We are particularly excited about this slate of programs because, as Bob mentioned, public comment, this is the first program in Pittsburgh to really bring together these sets of eviction prevention defense services into one coordinated program for city Pittsburgh residents. So this will in turn create a more accessible program for residents regardless of where they're at with their housing legal need. The URA received 5 proposals. After careful review, the following contracts are proposed for consideration. Neighborhood Legal Services to perform limited legal consultation and full legal representation for tenants, as well as tingle title and foreclosure prevention for homeowners. Just Mediation Pittsburgh is going to provide mediation services for tenants. Community Justice Project will provide an array of legal services for residents who are ineligible for neighborhood legal services and/or residents who are undocumented. They will subcontract with Rent Help PDH and Pittsburgh Hispanic Development Corporation to provide coordinated entry services, who have been providing a similar service throughout 2020 for the CARES rent relief program. The Pittsburgh Hispanic Development Corporation will serve residents whose primary language is not English. Morant Law will provide limited legal consultation and full legal representation for tenants. Their partner organization, Ebony Law, will provide tingle title services for homeowners. Morant Law is a women and minority-owned enterprise, and Ebony Law is a minority-owned firm. The Hill District Consensus Group will provide outreach services to help residents know about the program, how to access it, and provide additional housing and basic needs resources. The URA will also provide funding for language interpretation services for any legal assistance program providers within this program. Additionally, to accommodate the increased demand for these services, the Housing Opportunity Fund Advisory Board approved a motion to use $200,000 of HOF demonstration funds to supplement the existing budget, making the total budget for this program $1 million. In total, the program was aimed to serve over 1,300 households in Pittsburgh with legal needs over the next 12 months. A total of 37% of the funding will be awarded to MWBE organizations. With board approval today, the URA staff have a goal of starting services by early May. Thank you for your consideration. Any questions?
not a question, but Jeremy, I just want to echo the public comments and thank you again for your hard work on this and crafting this incredibly important program, and also thank the Housing Opportunity Fund Board for their work on it as well.
It was truly a community effort.
Okay. Any questions? Any comments?
Only comment is thank you. Thank you very much for putting this together.
Yeah, we're seeing this is needed more than ever. And so it's really great that we're able to finally provide this for folks who need it.
I think a motion to approve would be in order.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Right. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next, we've got a whole bunch of RCAP grants to look at, and then some previous RCAP awards, a couple of those to discuss.
Yes, thank you and good afternoon. My name is Tim DeSalvio. I'm the Grants and Funding Analyst in the URA's Department of Finance. I'm here today to provide a summary of the 2020 Redevelopment Assistance Capital Program as it relates to awarded projects within the city of Pittsburgh, and also seek board authorization on a number of items related to the 2020 funding round and prior funding round authorizations. With that, I'll just quickly jump through the first three authorization requests, which pertain to the 2020 award round, and then followed by a recap of the round itself. So we're seeking authorization. Authorization is requested for the following actions related to the Pennsylvania Office of Budget's 2020 RCAP grant program. First, authorization to file full applications and enter contracts. Second, authorization to enter into RCAP subgrant agreements and administrative fee contracts with RCAP subgrantees. And third, authorization to enter into cooperation agreements with the city of Pittsburgh concerning the RCAP applications and grants. On the next slide, the round is summarized. So here's some funding round highlights. Again, the State Office of Budget Grant Program is for acquisition and construction of regional improvement projects. RCAP projects have a regional or multi-jurisdictional impact, generate substantial increases or maintain current employment levels, tax revenue, and other economic activity measurements. A breakdown of the awards within the city of Pittsburgh. So 33 RCAP awards were granted in 18 Pittsburgh neighborhoods, 28 of which will be managed by the URA and generate administrative revenue for the URA. The total for those 33 or for the 29 URA managed awards is $41,750,000. And there are 3 URA driven projects that were awarded funding that are summarized on the next slide. Those URA driven projects are Lower Hill Block E, which was awarded $3 million. Ferrywood Industrial Site Prep awarded $500,000. And Larmor Phase 3 Commercial awarded $500,000. And just a quick summary of the timeline. The award letters for the 2020 funding round went out in December of 2020, and the full application deadline to submit, the post-award applications is June 23rd, 2021. So we are now in the full swing of getting prepped to get those applications completed and submitted. And then next, I'll jump into the next round of board authorization requests, which pertains to a prior year award. So authorization is requested for the following actions related to Action Housing's Flats on Forward project, a 2019 and 2020 RCAP grant recipient. So authorization requested is an amendment of previously approved resolutions to authorize the filing of applications and entry into contracts with the State Budget Office for increased RCAP grant amount, an amendment to previously approved resolutions to authorize entry into RCAP subgrant agreements, an amendment of previously approved resolutions to authorize entry into cooperation agreements with the city of Pittsburgh for an increased RCAP grant amount. And lastly, to amend resolutions 268, 269, and 270 of 2019 to increase the award for this project from $1 million to $2 million, taking into account the 2020 funding round. That concludes these action requests related to RCAP. Any questions?
Sorry for that.
I would like to add that a full list of the 2020 funding round awards was provided in the meeting materials.
Any questions? We should take both of these 6A and 6B and the various resolutions and falling under each of them together as one motion for approval, I think. But before we do that, any questions, clarifications from the board? The 2020 awards, just as a reminder, these are decisions made by the state DCD, and URA, for all functional purposes, serves as a pass through. There are some of these projects that we were actually involved in prior to their initial request submissions to the state, and others that went directly to the state without our knowledge or involvement, but they received the awards, and then we serve as the administrative body that administers them and passes the money, the state money, through to the local developer. And the terminology gets a little confusing sometimes because the application happens after the award is actually already decided. So this is largely an administrative approval.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to development services. With Tim DeSalvio. You there, Tim?
Oh, I think I'm up. Are we on Northside Properties?
Brett Morgan, this one will be covered by Brett Morgan.
Yes, I
and
apologize. This is
housing.
Tim. I handled the RCAP.
Yep, sorry. I'm reading the wrong part of my notes. Go ahead, Brett.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Today I'm requesting authorization to one, accept the proposal package submitted by Northside Properties Residences 4 LLC, and two, enter into a disposition contract for the sale of 28 URA-owned parcels for $1 plus costs. To provide some general background on the project, Calbride Place is located in the California Kirkbride neighborhood. It's at the intersection of California Avenue and Kirkbride Street. The development will include the new construction of 42 units, which will be contained within a new 30-unit apartment complex and 6 new duplexes. So though the action today is to enter into a contract for the sale of 28 parcels, the development will occupy 45 parcels in total. But the development itself will also contain a mixture of bedroom counts, including 23 one-bedroom units, 7 two-bedroom units, 7 three-bedroom units, and 5 four-bedroom units. And then regarding the affordability, all 42 units will be subject to a 20-year HUD project-based Section 8 HAP contracts. And then there's further affordability. Specifically, 5 units will be affordable at or below 30% AMI, 20 units at or below 50%, and then 17 units at or below 60%. So Northside Properties Residences 4 LLC is the borrower and the ownership entity. Northside Properties R&S LLC is the managing member, and Ralph A. Falbo Inc. is the development consultant. And then lastly, I'll just add that it might sound familiar. This development project was presented and approved at the February board meeting. They obtained approval for URA financing in the amount of $850,000. So at this time, I'll just reintroduce Sarah Mystic, who's the principal of the managing member, and Michael Polite with Ralph A. Falbo Inc. They're on the line to provide any additional information and in case there are any questions from the board. Thanks.
No questions, but it is worth noting because Lindsay often asks that, and you already mentioned it, but it's just worth noting again that they are indeed providing 3 and 4 bedroom units because we often have conversations about are we providing affordable units for families, and so this is one of the developments that is. So I just thought it was worth highlighting that again.
Stole my thunder, Councilman.
All right, and if there are no other questions, then I think a motion to approve would be in order.
So move.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, good afternoon. This item is for authorization to enter into exclusive negotiations with Module on 2 different development sites in Garfield on Broad Street and Rosetta. You go to the next slide, please. On Broad Street, this is a 2 single-family market rate townhouse site, 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bath units each. will also feature off-street parking in the rear. And on Rosetta Street, this is a 10-unit mixed income, single family semi-attached development featuring a green space parcel on the far west side. You can see kind of on the site plan on the top, that's being reserved for green space. And Module is partnering with the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation on this project, this portion of the project, Rosetta Street. And Rich Snipe is on the line to talk a little more about PHDC's involvement with Module on this development. And following Rich's comments, we also have Lou Xu and Brian Gaudio from Module to answer any further questions.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Jack had mentioned, the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation has been working with Modular Development LLC for this project. The goal has been from the start to be able to provide much needed affordable for sale housing in the community. And Modular has stepped up to the plate, and they've agreed to be able to produce a minimum of 3 to 4 affordable units on Rosetta Street. That's to give you a little bit of history and context about Rosetta Street. 20 years ago, there were actually houses on that street. And this is before Garfield became the neighborhood that it is today. Because of a lack of investment, the homes were run down. Subsequently, they became torn down. And if you ride down the 5100 block of Rosetta Street today, you'll see basically what is turned into a dumping site. The homes have been torn down. So this is an opportunity not only to provide affordable housing, but again, to be able to bring the community back. And with working with Module, we've put a lot of emphasis on the design of the home, working diligently to be able to make sure that the homes are going to be affordable. And to add to that, 2 of the PHDC's staff members happen to be homeowners and live in Garfield. So they've been actively involved in the meetings with the community and working together to make sure that we produce a quality product for this neighborhood. In addition, we're hoping that once this project is completed, if we get approval, we're going to work with Module to duplicate this over and over again, particularly in Garfield, because right now the median listing price for a home is over $220,000, which is making it difficult for families to be able to live in a community. So our goal is to produce as many affordable units as possible in that community and strengthen that relationship with Module to be able to do that. As Jack had mentioned, we're talking 10 units altogether. 3 to 4 of those units will be affordable to families at or below 80% AMI. The goal is, again, to be able not only to provide affordable unit, but to help families build wealth in a community where the property values are rising. And that's what our goal is this afternoon. We'll be working with Module to produce the funding needed in order for the grants. Some of the challenges that we're facing right now, as everyone knows, is the cost of construction is extremely high. It's jumped to somewhere between 135 to 200%. But Module is still committed to making these homes affordable. And so we're proud to be partnering with someone who's committed to making affordable housing available in a much needed neighborhood in the East End. And we're open for any questions.
When we talk about the 6 to 7 market rate units, what are we talking about in terms of, that's for sale or is that just market rate rentals?
No, these are all for sale housing.
All for sale. So what's what will be the going price for the 6 or 7 market rate units?
That hasn't been determined yet. It all will, the numbers keep going up. So that'll be fleshed out once we have a final budget in place. We're anticipating though the price for the affordable units will probably fall somewhere in the $200,000 range.
For the affordable units, around 2,000?
Around 200,000 for the affordable units.
200,000 for the affordable.
So we would like to pair that with HOF assistance as well as HACP assistance that will bring that, add some subsidy to bring the price, not the price of those homes down, but certainly bring down the cost to the borrower. So we are in communication with HACP, and Bloomfield Garfield Corporation will need to enact an application to the HOF in an effort to deepen affordability.
So with that, what would that look like? Just curious, just a ballpark, if we could.
Because that's what we did for the last one, right? For the last module came to the board.
Yeah, I remember, that's why I was asking, because I know it hadn't been flushed out the last time they came here. And their headquarters is here, correct?
Correct.
The project, we recently completed a project on Black Street where we had one unit that was a 2-bedroom home, 80% AMI or below. We ended up selling that to a home buyer, first time minority female home buyer who was probably in the 60% AMI range. The sales price on that unit, which was going to be different than these, but that was about 183 pre-second deferred mortgage, pre-HACP grants. So that price to her was probably closer to 130 after those other subsidies kicked in. But we're really excited to work with PHDC on this project because this is, the idea of mixed income is about balancing market rate and affordable. And, the track record that PHDC has speaks for itself, and we're very excited to work with them.
I just wanted to ask that question because, in Garfield, a lot of it is filling the market rate and that they can't afford and it's being pushed out. That's a lot of calls I'm sure we all get. So I just was, I was curious about how this mixed use is going to look. It's mixed income, I mean.
Sounds like
it will come back to the board many, many times, and the more it comes back, it will be more further refined. And we will do some modeling to get an answer for you around the actual price of the borrower, Representative Gainey. I'll make sure that happens.
But it has to come back around, correct?
It has to come back around.
Yeah, it sounds like we should expect to see this probably multiple times because this is just the initial land transaction or the beginning of the land transaction. And then it sounds like we should potentially expect to see, other other forms of support and engagement on this project as well.
Yeah, I'd like to see the final numbers. That would be critical for Garfield. We all know that.
Oh yeah.
Hi, just real fast, because we have been sort of playing around with numbers a lot as we're preparing for our own PGH. And for a household to have a mortgage that's comfortable to them at about 25% of their monthly income, they're an 80% AMI household needs, they really shouldn't comfortably afford more than like 135 or 140 in a first mortgage. So it's our intent with this project and other projects that we support to make sure we can get that first mortgage amount down to a comfortable 25% of their monthly income.
I look forward to it. Just was curious because Garfield's going through a lot right now.
I had a question about the houses on Black Street, just because I pass them all the time. There are 3 there, correct? And one of them is market, or 2 of them are market, and 1 was at affordable. Could you tell me a little bit about the project? Because it seems like, and maybe I'm passing them at the wrong times of day, but it seems like they're not yet occupied, or at least 2 of them aren't yet occupied.
So there are 3 homes on Black Street, technically 4 units. 1 is a duplex, and then the 2 others are single family homes. The single family homes are fully occupied and sold. The affordable home was purchased by our homeowner in October of last year. So she moved in October. And then the market rate was purchased earlier this year.
So there are 3 markets and 1 affordable.
Yeah, there's a duplex. It's one structure, but it's an up-down duplex. So that's a rental project technically. And then the other 2 were for sale.
How much did the market rates go for?
So the market rate house went for $395.
$395,000?
Correct. And then the affordable one was $183 pre-second deferred, pre-HACP.
And could you remind me as well, I think if I remember from the last time you guys came here, the kind of special thing that you do as well is making them energy efficient. Is that correct? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So actually the affordable house received a high performance HVAC system. So an extremely energy efficient HVAC system, and also received some very high quality windows and doors in the house. And then extra insulation on the outside of the house. Basically all of that meaning that the homeowner will have to pay, won't have to pay as much if they were using, traditional larger HVAC systems. Also, the homes are all electric, so they're not using fossil fuels to be heated or cooled, which is another value add to the homeowner. And we've just started to collect energy utility usage from the homeowners, because that's important for us to track as well, to show that those investments into energy efficiency are paying off for the end occupant.
Thank you.
So this action, there are 9 parcels on Rosetta Street that we're talking about, and 2 on Broad Street. And what we're being asked to approve is the period of exclusive negotiations regarding the sale of those parcels. And presumably we're not going to be subsidizing through a below market rate sale the parcels that are not going to end up being at, priced at affordable levels, right? We're not going to sell at below market rate any of these parcels if what's going to go on them is market rate units. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. The market rate parcels will be priced at market rate. Again, a hard purchase price hasn't been determined yet for either of these, but that's the thinking. And also to clarify a point that was raised earlier, this is, again, just for exclusive negotiations. This item will be back at least, 2 more times in our disposition process for approval of an official proposal, which we'll issue once we set the purchase price for each site. And then after that, approval of final drawings and final evidence of financing. So 2 more times.
So I guess clearly it sounds like we would like to see, I'm just surmising here, but we would like to see the period of exclusive negotiations be able to be used as a way to sort of flesh out in more detail. And these can be at affordable rates. Obviously, the more the better. If we can use the land sale prices to potentially get more of them at below market rates, that's probably better for the neighborhood. And we look forward, I think, to seeing greater detail as we see both these land transactions come back before us a couple times, and then probably other aspects of this development come before us.
Yeah, Sam, just to be clear though, they have to come back before to be a final vote on this project, correct?
Yeah, they have to come back on the land sale, but then this is like the exclusive negotiations to sell them these 11 parcels on on Rosetta.
Rosetta.
Yeah, 2 of them are on Broad and 9 of them are on Rosetta. And they got to come back to us with exactly what the purchase prices are and everything for final approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then if there are, as Diamante suggested earlier, if there are sort of housing opportunity fund or other mechanisms that we have that we can deploy to help make more of these actually affordable to low-income homeowners, we would expect to see those those for consideration before us as well.
Mm-hmm. And exclusive negotiations just means that we're taking these off the kind of public market, and Module has basically exclusive right to negotiate with us for the next 6 months, I believe it is, or 90. Yeah. So it's just removing it from public market.
Right. And then the results of those negotiations will be a proposal to purchase the 11 parcels for, a certain amount of money, and that'll be brought before the board for a vote.
Yeah, I just, some of my concerns, I think, would be that while this is, I think, really innovative, and obviously I'm a huge proponent of trying to create mixed income neighborhoods, especially in a neighborhood where we've all said, home ownership here would create a massive amount of equity for, someone who's able to purchase under market and to purchase the affordable house. I just have a lot of hesitation with the kind of limited dollars that the URA has, putting, $4 million for us, probably several, maybe an additional $1 million from the housing authority for 3 units. It just seems like, that's 3 units, and, probably the cost of what land would be as well, probably bumps that price up a lot. And so, I just wanted to voice that concern is, while I do, again, think that this model is interesting. It does have a very steep price tag to do, very few units. So. And I don't know.
Yeah, we talked about that for the Blackstreet properties too.
Yeah.
they were
And I think that was my concern then as well, is that it was, and this is, we said it as well, that it's a lot of money to do this. And obviously high quality housing is a lot of money, and considering, construction period has gone up, construction prices period have gone up during COVID. So I'm sure your numbers are jacked up as well, but it is concerning to me that, this is such a high sticker price and the, yield is very low.
Well, and Garfield, I guess the other thing to add is that Garfield has sort of already become a pretty mixed income neighborhood and just trending more and more in that direction as the private market drives up the cost of for sale homes. And, that's not to, that's not to understate the incredible work that Bloomfield Garfield Corporation has done in the neighborhood to invest in affordability and to make sure that they're maintaining long-term affordability for residents there. But, I guess we also question a little bit the need for new market rate investments in a neighborhood that's already trending in that direction, when maybe what we need more of is affordable homeownership opportunities there.
And that's why I was asking the question, Sam, but you said they have to come back towards us, because at the end of the day, it's already mixed income. The question is how we push in the market and what we're going to do.
Right.
And you and I both know that could be problematic.
Right. And this isn't like a depressed neighborhood where we're trying to bring market rate into it because everything is already below market rate.
One of the things that I think the board should also be aware of, we've seen an uptick in conservative applications from private developers, with Garfield being one of the targets. And so we have no guarantee that these are going to be socially aware private developers that want to work with organizations like the URA and PHDC. So we try to take a surgical approach so that we can interject ourselves. We own the land, so we do have the control, but I think that this gives us an opportunity to try to push for some affordability and keeping people in the neighborhood, and also bringing folks back to the neighborhood that may have been displaced through different cycles. So this will come back to the board repeatedly, but I do want everybody to be aware that we may see a continued uptick in conservatorship being filed by private actors who want to get control over public land, and will make it even more difficult for the URA to intervene as a responsible, steward of trying to push affordable housing.
Yep. So I think I guess I would ask before we entertain a motion on this one that that this probably goes without saying, but certainly encourage the URA staff to think about this conversation as we're moving forward with this period of exclusive negotiations. And if you're going to, as you come back to the board with further proposals on this project, hopefully they will reflect the concerns that have been identified here.
Noted. Thank you.
So with that said, is there a motion to approve again this preliminary period of exclusive negotiations?
The move.
The motion, is there a second? There's no second, then the motion will die. So I guess I'll ask again, there's been a motion, is there a second? I'll give it one more time. Is there a motion, is there a second?
Even if the board would like to vote no, you have to do the second motion so that you can all register your nays.
Gotcha. I can second it then.
Oh, okay. I think under Robert's rules, if there's not a second to a motion, the motion just dies.
I'm sorry. I thought you needed to have them vote yay or nay.
Not necessarily. I think under Robert's rules, the motion could just die if there's no second.
My error.
The period of exclusive negotiations would not be approved. So is Nathan or somebody on that can confirm?
Hi, Director. Yeah, that's our interpretation as well, that if there is no second, that the motion would not be approved. There'd be no further action necessary.
So I'm going to not consider Director Powell's motion.
I'll take it back. I takes it back.
And I think we move on to the next agenda item. And
We'll put it in the minutes.
Yeah. Okay, you're a robot.
Leia, you sound like a robot.
Is this any better?
Yeah, that's way better.
All right, sorry about that. So today I'll be presenting and requesting approval for the Center Avenue Development Fund guidelines. Next slide, please. So the Center Avenue Development Fund guidelines will provide funding for all of the Center Avenue Round 1 developers. This funding will cover PWSA infrastructure expenses and pre-development expenses. $20,000 will be available for the PWSA infrastructure expenses, and those funds will be available immediately after these guidelines are approved. We're also offering $50,000 for each developer for pre-development activities, and this portion of the funds will be available paired with project milestones. So once a developer has entered into a URA disposition contract and we've accepted their proposal, we will make $25,000 of that 50 accessible. And then when they come back and show us that their project is 75% funded or between 50 and 75% drawings, we will make the additional $25,000 accessible. This helps the developers because they see that as they achieve these milestones, there is funding to be unlocked for them. And it also helps us because then we can see how our injection of funding helps these projects advance. Any questions?
No question. Just a tremendous amount of thanks. I remember we had a conversation maybe a year and a half ago, pre-COVID, where we talked about the challenges that each individual developer was going to have to take on relative to infrastructure and everything else. And therefore, we all had a conference call where you, Layla, and Director Walker and others were saying, we're putting your creative minds together of what you could do to potentially assist. So I just want to thank you for now actually moving forward on that, because I know it took a lot to figure out how to make this happen. So thank you very much.
Leia and the team have been incredible figuring out how to do this and the right funding sources to make this very flexible. We also want to thank the Hillman Foundation for their contribution to the Center Avenue Redevelopment Fund. That will go a long way in providing these developers with some assistance. I'd also like to, if I may, issue an announcement here regarding Governor Wolf awarding Big Tom's Barbershop $500,000 from the new commercial revitalization program that's been developed by the state. That is a major milestone for Tom's Barbershop. So just want to underscore that for the board. I believe that your preliminary approvals have built confidence and assurance in the project, and this is definitely going to go a long way in getting Tom across the finish line.
To that point, I'll also just thank you and all the staff. I know Jessica was involved, Representative Wheatley. There was a lot of folk lobbying, neighborhood allies. There were a lot of folk lobbying.
You too.
Thank you. These dollars for Big Tom. So I just want to thank you all. Even Glenn Grayson, he did his lobbying. So I just want to thank everyone involved.
That award was issued, I think, or announced at least, just literally as we've been having this meeting. So that's
yes,
hot off the press news. It is great news at that. So, any other questions on the Center Avenue Development Fund guidelines?
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then almost last, I think, on our voting agenda, or second to last on our voting agenda, is Josette there to walk us through the Neighborhood Initiative Fund 2021 guidelines.
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to be quick because I know I'm the tail end of the agenda here. But we are just doing, presenting the 2021 Neighborhood Initiatives Fund. And just want to let you know some revisions and the timeline that we made. We've basically tightened up the guidelines this year. The Neighborhood Initiatives Fund, when it was originally conceived, was supposed to really focus on our neighborhood commercial corridors. Some other projects have filtered into the program over the last couple of years, and we thought this year, we have less funds than we did in the first year in 2019. And this year we thought it would be more effective to restrict proposals to our neighborhood commercial corridors. We are putting a priority focus on our Avenues of Hope corridors. We're going to be also in that vein, we're limiting it, limiting the program to 10 proposals this year. We funded 17 in 2019. In 2020, it was down to 11. So we thought if we focus on 10 proposals, then the staff will have the time to work with the groups in getting their proposals into contract and getting the project from start to finish. Part of that also is we know that if we're focusing on the Avenues of Hope corridors, especially the Perrysville and Chartiers corridors that have less capacity in terms of community organizations, then staff is going to be putting more time into helping the projects get through. The minimum grant amount is $20,000. We're still having the two tiers, 20 to 30,000. There's no match required by the group. 30 to 100,000, those larger projects, it's a 2-to-1 match, meaning for every $2 of URA funds that are being put in, we are asking the group to show $1 of match. We have kind of an extended timeline this year. We're going to be opening the funding round on June 15th. Applications will not be due until the end of August. That will give us time over the summer to work with organizations in submitting their proposals, doing information sessions, and particularly doing some targeted technical assistance in those Avenues of Hope corridors. And then in September, the review committee will meet. In October, we will be hopefully bringing the funding awards to the URA board and getting the grants under contract. This year, the funding, can we go to the next slide? Just a little review so far. From 2019 until now, we've put about 1.5 million into this program. We've done 29 projects in 22 neighborhoods. Because of the pandemic, the 2019 projects all got kind of delayed, but we are well on the way of completing all of the projects that are in the pipeline right now. And the 2021 funding is $500,000. So we're asking for the go-ahead approval for the timeline and the guideline revisions so we can move forward. So I'll entertain any questions.
Any questions? If there are no questions or comments, then on this one, I think a motion and a second to approve would be in order.
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. And then finally, we have a sort of reformatted approach to disclosures. These are things that we would have formerly put on the somewhat bizarrely named Agenda B that we are now naming as the disclosures agenda, because they're really items that are intended exactly for those purposes that technically require board approval, that are really pro forma actions, and that we are approving for the sake of disclosing them to the public. Seems I think a good suggestion from the leadership to rename it because it's a more appropriate name than the obscurely named Agenda B, which always felt like some weird sleight of hand to me. But so is there any comments on that? Serena Williams there, I know, is not the tennis star Serena Williams on letter D.
No.
So if there are no questions or comments, then a motion to approve the disclosure agenda in its entirety would be in order here.
So move.
Second.
Motion is seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries, which brings us to the conclusion of the meeting. And unless there's any good and welfare, we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting stands in adjournment. The next regular board meeting of the URA will be May 6th, I think. No, May 13th. May 13th is our next board meeting. So we will see you then and here and then, and at some point, maybe we'll see you in person this year.
Yeah, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you.